So I'm continuing on with the properties over exponents, and in this video we're going to be starting with property number 5 because we've already covered properties 1 through 4, and here's a quick little recap of them. So the first video was over 1 through 3, and the last video was over property number 4, where we learned if we have a bad attitude, then that moves him to the opposite floor or that moves him to the basement. Or if he's already in the basement with a bad attitude, then that moves him to the upper floor with a good attitude. Whenever they move floors, that gives them a happy attitude or no more negative exponents. So let's move on to property number 5. Property number 5 only has one base, but it has an exponent, and then we're taking that to another exponent. Whenever we have an exponent to an exponent, what we do is we multiply those exponents. So this becomes a to the m times n, or in short form, a to the mn. Now let me prove it to you. So here I have second squared to the third. Well, let me write out what this third means. That means 7 squared, 3 amounts of times. Now, to prove this property, I could take each of these 7 squared and write them out what they mean, or again, I'm already going to use properties that I've proved to you. So the property I'm going to use is property number 1, where I can add all of these exponents. So this gives me 7 to the 2 plus 2 plus 2, or 7 to the 2, 4, 6. So if I use my definition of property number 5, that becomes 7 to the 2 times 3, or 7 to the 6. So this is what the property says to do. This is how I prove to you that's the way it works out. Okay, I wouldn't leave it as 7 to the 6 in a final answer in a homework problem, but that does prove to you how my property works. So I have an example over here. I suggest you pause the video and see if you can figure this guy out. I have 2 ways I can tackle this one. I can do my exponent to an exponent in the property that I just learned, or I can take care of what my bad attitude is, and that goes back to property number 4. Either way is going to work out the exact same way. In this example, I choose to multiply these or using that property that we just learned. So if I write this out, that gives me t to the negative 3 times 5, or t to the negative 15. Now, we should never leave bad attitudes or negative exponents in our final answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this guy to the opposite floor. So that gives me 1 over t to the positive 15. And there is my final answer. Now, if you would have started this problem by moving your bad attitude, it would have all worked out the same way. So don't be afraid to start these problems different than the way I worked them on the video. So let's move on to property number 6. This one looks very similar to the last one, but in this one, I have 2 bases and 1 exponent. If my bases are multiplied, then I can distribute that exponent, and I can take that a to the mth power times b to the mth power. So let me prove that to you down here. 2x to the 4th. If I write it out longhand, that really means 2x times itself 4 times. But I know that multiplication is commutative and associative, so this is all multiplication all the way across. So I can just rearrange this. I can take all of my 2's and put them together, and I can take all of my x's and put them together. So if I write that out, that gives me 2 to the 4th times x to the 4th. And so that has just proved property number 6, where I can take this exponent and distribute it through. One more time, this would not be your final answer in an actual homework problem. You would simplify it completely, where 2 to the 4th is 16. But this here proves to you that this property works the way I claimed it to in the first place. I have an example over here on the right. Now this example involves way more than just property number 6. I suggest that you pause the video and see if you can figure this one out, but don't be afraid to reference any of these other properties that we've learned along the way if you need to. So here, there is a lot of different ways I can actually start this problem. I can distribute my exponents on the outside using the property that we just learned. I can move my bad attitude. But the one thing that I do want to emphasize that you cannot do here is you cannot multiply this times this. And the reason that I cannot combine these at the beginning is because I have to go back to my PEMDAS rules. PEMDAS says I do need to handle my exponents before I need to worry about my multiplication. So if you do multiply these two numbers first, that's actually doing multiplication before my exponents. So you have to simplify the exponents before multiplying these. So the way that I am going to work this problem is by distributing these exponents all the way through. And since they're separate, I can distribute them both. Now I will write this step out fully here, but on your homework, I suggest that you try and skip steps. So you're focused less on writing everything out and you're focused more on what the actual work is to do. So first I have 3 to the 5th power. Next I have 3 to the 4th to the 5th. Well, that actually uses property number 5 that says I multiply out those exponents. So this is x to the 4 times 5. Then this is multiplied, and if you wanted to use parentheses around these, that would be fine. In my second guy, I have 2 to the 6, and I have x to the negative 3 times 6. Now let me simplify what some of these are. So 3 to the 5th gives me 243. I have x to the 4 times 5, or x to the 20th, times the second part of this problem. 2 to the 6 is 64, and x to the negative 3 times 6 gives me negative 18. Well, now I need to do this multiplication. So I need to take this times this. Well, I can rearrange this, so I'm going to multiply like pieces. So first I take 243 times 64. And that gives me a big number, 15,552. And next, I have x to the 20th times x to the negative 18th. That uses property number 1, where I add my exponents. So that gives me x to the 2nd power. And that there is my final answer to this example on property 6. So I'm going to finish this video up, and in the next video, I'm going to tackle my last two properties, property 7 and property 8.